I never thought I would join a singles trip. At 58, I had convinced myself that my days of new beginnings were behind me, and yet, there I was, sitting by the window of a coach bus rolling through the golden countryside, pretending to admire the autumn fields while my heart whispered something different. Most of the others around me, men and women in their 50s, 60s, some even older, had signed up for the same reason. I had to silence the loneliness that creeps in when the house grows too quiet, when evenings feel longer than they used to. The brochure had promised scenic views, comfortable lodgings, and maybe, if fate allowed it, the spark of new companionship. But here's my secret. I wasn't looking at the mountains, or the lakes, or even the silver-haired gentleman sitting across the aisle. My eyes kept drifting to her. Emily, she was 40, the tour guide assigned to lead us. A warm smile, a clear voice through the microphone, the kind of graceful presence that made the entire bus lean forward and listen. She remembered names, asked after our comfort, laughed softly at our small jokes. It wasn't just her beauty. It was the way she made each of us feel seen, and I, a man who had spent a lifetime hiding behind work and routine, suddenly found myself wondering what it would be like if that smile was meant only for me. The bus carried us deeper into the countryside, past rolling hills, painted in amber and crimson. Around me, people leaned toward the windows, pointing and snapping photographs as though the colors might vanish if they looked away. Laughter floated through the aisle. Some had already paired off, shoulders brushing as they shared their stories of work, family, and the years gone by, but I couldn't join in. My eyes wandered again and again to Emily. She moved so effortlessly through the rows, checking on an elderly woman who needed help with her seatbelt, offering a bottle of water to a gentleman who had forgotten his. Every gesture was natural, every smile sincere. I told myself it was foolish. She was here to do her job, not to become part of someone's love story. Still, when her gaze met mine for the briefest second, I felt the stir of something I thought I had buried long ago. A trembling that belonged to youth, not to a man my age. By the time we reached the inn that evening, the sun had already dipped below the horizon. The building stood proud with its ivy-covered walls, its windows glowing with warmth. Inside, the scent of wood, smoke and freshly baked bread wrapped around us like an embrace. We settled into our rooms, then gathered in the main hall for dinner. Long tables were filled with steaming bowls of soup, roasted vegetables, platters of meat. Wine glasses clinked. Someone suggested karaoke, and soon voices, some surprisingly strong, others delightfully off-key, rose into the rafters. I laughed with them, but my laughter was hollow. My attention kept drifting to where Emily stood near the stage, applauding each performance, her face glowing in the golden light. Later, after the games and songs had ended, I wandered to the lounge, my heart still restless, my thoughts refusing to quiet. And then I saw her, Emily, finally free of her duties, seated alone on a sofa, a small glass of wine in her hand. I hesitated only a moment before walking over. "Would you mind some company?" I asked softly. She looked up, startled at first, then smiled. A real smile, not the professional one she gave to everyone. "Just for a little while," she said. I sat beside her, the weight of the day slipping away. Around us, the inn had grown silent. Only the distant crackle of the fireplace and the hushed whispers of the night remained. For the first time, I allowed myself to speak, not as a traveler or a participant, but as a man. She asked me, gently, "So, have you found anyone on this trip who caught your eye?" Her tone was light, teasing, the way you'd expect a guide to keep the conversation moving. But her eyes lingered on me, waiting. I could have lied. I could have mentioned the smiling widows, or the kind women who had spoken to me during dinner, but the truth pressed at my chest, until it spilled out. "No," I said quietly, "because the one person I kept looking for was you." For a moment, she was silent. The firelight flickered across her face, softening her expression. Then, to my surprise, a faint blush rose to her cheeks. "You shouldn't say that," she whispered, lowering her gaze. "I'm supposed to be looking after everyone, not being noticed in that way." But when she looked back up, there was something vulnerable in her eyes. Something that told me my words had reached a part of her that was tired of always being the caretaker, never the one cared for. I leaned in slightly, careful not to frighten her away. "You spend so much time making sure everyone else is happy. Doesn't someone deserve to make you feel that way, too?" Her lips parted, but no words came. Instead, she exhaled slowly, as though releasing a secret she had kept for years. Then, almost imperceptibly, she shifted closer. So close. I could feel the warmth of her shoulder against mine. The world around us faded, the inn, the tour, even the purpose of the trip itself. All that remained was the quiet thrum of possibility, of something long denied. "I've been waiting," she said softly at last, For a moment like this. Maybe for someone like you. The courage I thought had left me years ago surged back in an instant. I reached for her hand, and when her fingers curled around mine, trembling, but sure, I knew I hadn't been foolish to hope. In that dimly lit lounge, surrounded by echoes of laughter that had already faded into memory, our story began, not as guide and guest, not as strangers thrown together by chance, but as to lonely souls daring to step into something new. The next morning, the bus hummed back to life, carrying us toward the city. Through the windows, the fields glowed once more in their autumn colors, but the air inside felt different now. Most of the passengers sat comfortably with new companions beside them, chatting and laughing like old friends. I should have felt left behind, yet instead, I carried with me a quiet warmth that no one else could see. Every so often, when Emily walked down the aisle to check on us, her eyes found mine, just for a second, just long enough to remind me that the night before hadn't been a dream. As we drew closer to the station, where the trip would end, the chatter grew louder, the farewells more certain. I watched couples exchange numbers, some promising to meet again, others already planning dinners, and then Emily's voice, steady and professional as ever, rose above it all, thanking us for joining, wishing us happiness. But when the bus stopped and we filed out with our luggage, she slipped close to me, her voice barely above a whisper. "Richard, I don't know what tomorrow looks like, but I know I want to see you again." I smiled, unable to hide the relief flooding through me. "Then let's make sure we do." The others bustled around us, unaware, while we stood there on the pavement. 2. People who had lived long enough to know how rare it is to feel the heart quicken, to believe in possibility again. For years, I had thought love was something that belonged to the past, something left behind in younger days, buried under work and routine. But in that moment, I understood the truth. The heart does not retire. It waits, patiently, until we dare to let it beat freely once more. And so, as the bus pulled away, and the crowd dispersed, I walked beside Emily, our steps uncertain but together. The journey we had signed up for was ending, but another one, neither of us had planned, was just beginning.